A mother's instinct is fierce, but sometimes even the strongest love isn't enough. On a frozen winter morning, a helpless cry shattered the silence. A puppy was drowning, a mother dog was desperate, and what happened next was a rescue. So unbelievable, it will leave you speechless. A mother's love has no limits, but what happens when even her strongest instincts aren't enough? This story of a desperate struggle, a frozen lake, and an unlikely hero will leave you breathless. Among the trees, a stray German shepherd mother had made her den, sheltering her tiny litter of puppies. Though food was scarce and the cold was unforgiving, she never strayed far, always curling her body around her little ones, shielding them from the frost. To her, survival meant sacrifice, and every heartbeat was dedicated to the fragile lives she had brought into the world. The puppies, though young, were curious about their white, frozen surroundings. They waddled clumsily through the snow, yipping with excitement, their innocent play a sharp contrast to the dangers lurking nearby. The mother's watchful eyes followed their every move, ears twitching at the slightest sound. She knew this world was dangerous, but her puppies didn't, at least, not yet. The air seemed deceptively calm that morning. But beneath the surface of the frozen pond lay a hidden danger, waiting silently for one small misstep that would change everything. The puppies, full of energy, tumbled about in the snow, their tiny paws leaving scattered trails behind them. Among them, one adventurous pup strayed farther than the rest, its nose pressed curiously against the frozen water. The mother barked a warning, her sharp eyes following, but the little one didn't listen. A faint crack echoed through the still air. The puppy's paws pressed harder against the fragile surface. Suddenly, the ice gave way with a sharp snap, and the pup plunged into the dark, freezing water below. The mother's heart seemed to stop. She lunged forward, barking frantically, her claws scraping desperately at the ice. The puppy thrashed. In panic, its tiny cries piercing the silence, eyes wide with fear as the icy water dragged it under. The mother barked louder, pawing, biting at the edge of the ice, trying with every ounce of strength to reach her baby. But the surface was slippery, and each attempt only deepened her frustration. Her breath puffed in frantic bursts, clouding the cold air as she whined and howled in despair. Nearby, the other puppies whimpered, huddling together, sensing their siblings' danger. The air filled with tension, the only sounds being the mother's desperate cries and the splashing of the little one trapped beneath the ice. The struggle had only just begun, and time was already slipping away. The mother dog's paws were raw from clawing at the ice, but she refused to give up. Again and again, she pressed her weight against the frozen edge, stretching her muzzle toward the water where her puppy struggled. Her cries grew louder, echoing across the empty winter air, a heartbreaking plea for help no one seemed to hear. The puppy's movements were slowing. The bitter water sapped its tiny strength, and its frantic splashes grew weaker with every passing second. Its eyes, once wide with panic, now seemed to plead silently, as if begging its mother not to leave it behind. The mother barked, whimpered, and yelped, circling frantically, searching for another way to reach her baby. Her body trembled, whether from the cold or fear she didn't know, but she couldn't stop. She pressed her nose against the hole, desperate to nudge her puppy to safety, but the water was too deep. Her chest heaved with exhaustion, her paws slipping against the slick ice. Still, she fought on, her heart breaking with each moment that passed. She was a mother, and mothers never quit. But even she knew, her strength alone might not be enough. The frantic cries of the mother dog carried farther than she realized. Across the snow-covered path, a figure stopped mid-step, ears pricking to the sound of desperation. At first it seemed like nothing more than the barking of a stray, but then came the sharp yelps, the unmistakable sound of panic. Curiosity turned to concern, and the figure quickly followed the noise. Pushing through the trees, a man emerged at the edge of the clearing. What he saw made his stomach twist. On the frozen pond, a dog clawed frantically at a hole in the ice, her body tense with terror. And in the dark water below, a tiny puppy flailed weakly, moments away from being pulled under, for a heartbeat. The man froze. The danger was obvious. The ice looked thin, treacherous, ready to give way. But the mother's cries, raw with anguish, left no room for hesitation. He threw off his heavy coat and dropped his bag into the snow, heart pounding. With urgency, the mother dog turned as he approached, eyes wide, torn between fear of the stranger and desperation for help. For a tense moment, she barked at him, protective instinct battling with her pleading whimpers. But when he knelt, reaching cautiously toward the hole, her barking faded into anxious whines. Somehow, she seemed to understand. This human wasn't a threat. He was her only chance. The man inched forward, every movement careful, his weight spread across the fragile ice. His breath clouded the air in quick bursts, nerves tightening with each sharp crack beneath him. The puppy's cries were weakening fast, and he knew there was no time to waste. What happened next would test both courage and fate. The ice groaned beneath the man's weight as he stretched forward, belly pressed flat against the frozen surface. Each movement sent a sharp crack splintering through the silence, a reminder that one wrong shift could send him plunging into the same deadly water. Still, he pushed on, eyes fixed on the tiny form struggling below. The puppy's movements were slowing, its head dipping beneath the surface before bobbing weakly back up. Its cries had faded into faint whimpers, so soft they barely rose above the whispering wind. The mother dog barked desperately from the edge, pacing, her paws scratching grooves into the snow as she watched the stranger inch closer to her baby. Reaching the jagged hole, the man thrust his arm into the icy water. The cold stabbed like knives, instantly numbing his skin, but he ignored it, sweeping blindly in search of the puppy. For a terrifying moment, his hand found nothing but water. Then, soft fur brushed against his fingers. He grabbed hold, pulling with all his strength as the ice creaked dangerously beneath him. But at last, he lifted the tiny body free. The puppy dangled in his trembling hands, soaked and shivering, eyes half closed as if surrendering to the cold. The man pulled it close to his chest, shielding it from the wind, and scrambled back towards solid ground. Behind him, the ice cracked again, groaning in protest, but it held long enough for him to crawl to safety. The mother dog rushed forward instantly, tail wagging furiously, whining and licking her puppy even before it touched the snow. The little one was out of the water, but survival was still uncertain. The man knelt in the snow, cradling the tiny, limp puppy in his hands. Its fur clung to its shivering body, water dripping onto the frozen ground. For a terrifying moment, there was no sound, no whimper, no cry, just stillness. That he quickly pulled off his sweater, wrapping the puppy tightly, rubbing it with urgent hands to stir warmth back into its fragile body. His breath came fast, a mixture of fear and determination. "Come on, don't give up now," he whispered, his voice breaking the silence. The mother dog pressed close, licking her puppy's face, whining desperately, refusing to look away. Then, at last, a faint gasp escaped the little one's chest. Its body twitched, followed by a weak whimper. Relief flooded the air. The man exhaled shakily, tears stinging his eyes. The fight wasn't over yet, but hope had returned, wrapped safely in the man's arms. The puppy let out a tiny sigh, alive and clinging to warmth. The mother dog nuzzled close, her tail sweeping the snow in gratitude. In that frozen clearing, danger had been conquered by courage, and a life saved through the bond of love and compassion.